I'm going to present you with something your opponent has said about you. Kaliher has said you look like Jake Gyllenhaal. How do you respond?
I don't know.
I was telling Adam that he kind of looks a little bit like Jake Gyllenhaal. Is it just from my perspective here, or does he kind of look like him?
Summit Avenue sucks as a bike trail.
I don't really think you look like Jake Gyllenhaal.
I don't either. I don't know. My theory is it was like some political tactic to get people to like make fun of me or something. I don't know.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think it was a little bit of a gaffe, and she kind of likes you a little bit. I think who doesn't like Jake Gyllenhaal? And if you're comparing someone to someone else that you like, I think she kind of likes you. Right. She has a little bit of a crush.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Apparently you have no qualms about showing up to the Wedge Live podcast with a messy bedroom. What is going on?
Well, you gave me one day in advance. I had to get a new webcam because my cat ate the last webcam cord, so I'm making it work.
Are you aware there's a video component to this podcast?
I am. Yes. Okay. I'm throwing it all out there. People need to see how I am.
This is the real Adam Dullinger, the real me. Right here. This is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Joining me today is someone I turned down for a bike ride, and I said, it's too much work, these in-person things. Like I have multiple cameras, and we have to set up audio. It's a lot of editing work. And I said, we can't do a bike ride. I said, would you settle for a remote recording? You are a second-tier mayoral candidate. Would you settle
I guess so. Yeah.
Adam Dullinger running for St. Paul mayor is someone I consider to be a second-tier mayoral candidate in St. Paul. Is that fair?
Yeah. No, come on, man. I can't believe you didn't let me go on a bike ride. You know how excited I was for that, but.
Did you have it planned out? Did you have a route planned? Where were you?
I had multiple routes. I didn't know how long you were going to give me. I was like, I'll go the full grand round. I'll go everywhere. I don't care. But, it's fun. So I've
been joking about having a new segment on the Wedge Life podcast called Long Shots, subtitled Cranks, Weirdos, and Single Issue Candidates. And I wouldn't say you're a crank or a weirdo, but you appear to be a single issue candidate. Is that fair to call you that?
I don't think so. I know I talk about bike trails and stuff a lot, but that's not the only thing.
You talk a lot about transportation, which I like. I like having usually the oddball candidates, and I'm sorry to lump you in with oddball candidates, but you're a single issue candidate in my mind. And I like having someone there on the stage to bring things back to transportation. Like I was watching the forum from last week this morning, and you got a public safety question, and you're like, yeah, but what about all the people who die on our streets? Like there is many people. I don't know if this fact is true, Adam. I don't know if I can trust you, but you said there is many people who die on our streets in car crashes as in murders. Let's talk about that public safety question.
Yeah. I mean, nationwide, I think it's roughly around 40,000 for each. Just in the city of St. Paul, because we've had such a reduction in gun homicides, I think it actually is higher in number of like car deaths. I mean, just in my own neighborhood, I had someone get hit when across Dale Street, down on Maryland Avenue, someone got hit and died, and their dog. I mean, there's so much safety issues, even when they do, like, because this was the 4-to-3 conversion that the county did on some of their roads. And immediately after they had that, someone died on it. And it's like, these are improvements, but there's more that could be done. And like, if you don't stop people from driving 100 miles an hour down the road, they're going to keep on doing that.
So to get very serious, how seriously are you taking your chances to win?
I'm taking this very seriously. I mean, I understand that, I'm not doing things the typical way. I'm not a typical politician. I'm not raising any money. I'm not spending any money. I think we got to get money out of politics. And I think if I truly believe that, I think the best way to do it is to try and do this without any money. And I know that puts me at a pretty severe disadvantage to the typical election cycle, but if people truly want change and want to like make a difference, I think that's one way to do it, and just gotta boost the civic engagement, get people talking more, and not just relying on Facebook ads and like throwing my name at people to hope they like form a association with my name or something.
So my sense of it is that the bike people in St. Paul are with Carter. Like, do I have that correct? Like the bike activists in St. Paul?
It depends. I mean, depends who you ask. I mean, I get lots of feedback from people saying they love what I'm talking about, the urbanist things and like all that stuff. So, I'm seeing positive feedback from that. I'm not as interested in like trying to figure out who's voting for me or not. I just want to talk about the issues, and like if people jive with that, then that's great, and I'd love to do the job.
If someone thinks, well, Carter is my guy, I like that he supports Summit Ave, for example, I like his public works department and what they're doing, I'm excited about the future of transportation in St. Paul, like, can you distinguish yourself from that? Like, what's the contrast between you and Carter? Like, what's the problem and how are you better?
I mean, the big thing, it's tough because, yes, Carter has done a lot of work with the bike trail system. I mean, the reason why I can bike to work is because of the Robert Pieram Trail down kind of by the airport. And like that happened under his watch. So, some of those things are still happening. I'm not saying that like, the city's going to go to complete crap if Carter gets reelected. But I think one of the issues that I see with when we build our bike infrastructure is that we're only doing it when we have a road reconstruction happening at the same time. Because, we have this gold standard of what we want our bike trails to look like, which is great. Having a dedicated off street, everything's pretty. I live off Wheelock Parkway here on the Grand Round. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love that. But there's a lot more that we can do on other streets that is maybe more temporary. I look to like Pelham Boulevard and a lot of streets in Minneapolis too, where you just have kind of the separation and then the flex posts. It's like, it's not ideal for, long term, but for the short term, just to get that network going and to get people riding and to get that like momentum going, I think that's extremely important, because right now we don't have a network. We have the Grand Round and a couple like connections over going towards the east side. That's how I can get to work, is through that route. But if I want to go anywhere around Summit Hill or around 94, it's brutal. There's dangerous roads and I don't feel safe going there. And like I'm a regular guy, and just because you or me, who are bike people, can travel those roads and we know how to navigate them, it turns people off from going and doing that because they don't feel safe doing it. So it's just, you need to have that network effect.
Wow, the rare candidate who is cheerleading bollards. Usually I will talk to people who are confused by bollards, they trash the bollards, and I have to explain, well, it's temporary. It is better than just a line of paint. It is better than nothing, and people don't like having small concrete barriers. I mean, realistically, you could just put a bunch of concrete blocks all the way along. That would work too, but people are scared about how it's going to ruin their car. So, the compromise is to put the flex posts. But I've also seen like little plastic balls. I don't know how to describe these, but like little plastic lumps, not like a full curb, but just like not a tall bollard, but just like a little hump of plastic attached to the ground. I don't know which cities I've seen those in, but other cities do this in different ways.
Yeah, because then you can still have like delivery trucks get in if they really need to, but anything that like signals to the people that they can't, like this is a space for pedestrians and bikes, not for cars. So my interpretation of your answer is we need more. I've heard this from people in Minneapolis too. Like we need to be addressing all of the streets and not waiting for the reconstruction to come along. Exactly. Yeah.
Is that
and it's not
is
expensive.
that manageable?
I mean,
it's not expensive. How expensive do you think it would be?
Absolutely not. Well, I did for the concrete blocks. I got 10,000 molds. If you get all the concrete you need for it, and you put it on every single bike lane in the city, it would be like $5 million or something to put protected, concrete paths on. I mean, that's a very rudimentary effort. That'd be the lowest cost you could possibly make it. You can make it nicer. But it's not nearly as expensive as some of these other projects. I mean, the Kellogg Avenue Bridge that we're rebuilding, that was $90 million or $76 million or something like that. And so like we have the money to do these infrastructure projects. It's just where do we put it?
How long have you lived in St. Paul?
6 years now. So not quite as long as some of the other candidates, but I still care about the city. I bought my house here, so.
Have you been involved in any activism or any groups on transportation or other things?
Not directly. I've seen what people talk about, like Our Streets and Sustain St. Paul. They've been doing some good work. I haven't been directly involved in that stuff because I think that's not necessarily what I'm good at, is like the organizing aspect of it and like the advocacy and trying to explain it, which seems like a bad thing for a mayor, but like I genuinely think the mayor's job is to like work with the city government itself, not necessarily outside, and trying to like, if we wouldn't need so many advocates for these things if the people in power just actually cared about the issues, and that's the biggest thing in my mind. Not that they're not useful. I still think we need to have the advocacy groups, and I've considered maybe working with them more now going forward, but previously I just kind of like thought about these things on my own and came to my own conclusions.
Here's where I'm going to get tough. Like, what do you say to somebody who's like, well, your big issue is transportation. Where have you shown leadership in your adult life on a transportation issue? Like, what's the track record here where you have shown leadership that we should put you in this very important position where you say you're going to show leadership on transportation?
Well, at the end of the day, the mayor's job is to be a decision maker. I mean, there's a lot of people who work in the city government, and it's about kind of directing those people with the right mission. I know I don't have like leadership experience in the past, other than my own job. I'm a state licensed professional engineer. The state of Minnesota trusts me and thinks that I'm competent enough to solve complex problems and put those solutions into reality. Like that's an important job, and I know it's not the typical path, but you kind of gotta, it's a bit of a leap of faith, I understand, but like I truly do believe in these issues, and I know that when faced with a challenge, I can overcome those challenges and make it work.
Are you worried maybe you suffer from engineer brain where you're like, no, this is a math problem. Just do this. I know the right thing to do. Just do it. And then you'll be overwhelmed by the politics of it, where people are like, no, what about the parking? This doesn't make any sense at all. I will die if you do this. No to this bike lane.
Part of it's just having those conversations and trying to explain it to them and not giving up on the conversation either. It's like sometimes people are a little stubborn with, the parking thing, but like, you build more bike lanes, that's another parking spot for someone whenever I bike. And so like you can follow through with those conversations and just be honest with people and like talk about it. In my own job, right, I have to work with people. I have projects that I work with. I work with firefighters. I make firefighting equipment. And so like I have to work with all the different kinds of people and figure out like what they need and not get into tussles and not point blame to whose fault it is. It's a matter of just getting the thing done and actually working on it and finding the right solution and then fixing the problems when they arise and just going for it.
Do you have any validators, any endorsers who you could shout out and say, see, this person likes me, you should like me too?
I mean, I don't have any like famous endorsements. Everyone, I have plenty of people I talk to who agree with me. My friend Jace, I told her I'd give her a call out during this interview. She's a big fan, so.
Okay, Jace will vouch for Adam. Is that not good enough for people?
Maybe, I don't know. And it's just, it's about me. I don't want people to vote for me because some other politician thinks that I'm the right choice. I want them to vote for me because they actually believe in me. Not in someone else's opinion. I'm the one who's going to be doing the job, not the person who endorses me. So.
Do we need to talk about Summit Ave at all? I have been just endlessly frustrated when I talk to Kali on our bike ride, because she's a top tier candidate and she gets a bike ride, whereas Adam Dullinger, second tier, we're here remote on a remote call. But she wouldn't give me a straight answer on Summit, and then I like broadened it out and I said, okay, give me an example of a street you like. We're doing it the right way on this street. It doesn't even have to be in St. Paul. Have you been to a city that exists where you liked a street and you're like, we should do it that way? Right. And she dodged every version of the question.
She dodges it all.
I asked I can only think because she's still doing it, she still won't give a straight answer. I assume that she's working out the kinks in her talking points. I can only think she just doesn't want to give. Her intention is not to give a straight answer ever on this question.
Right.
Which is, she's running for mayor. Give a straight answer on transportation. It's like the biggest thing a city does.
I know. Well, that's kind of my whole thing. I'm like, public works is the large, it's like I keep talking about transportation, but like public works is the biggest part of the government. It's like that's where we spend all our money. You need to be talking about that. And the fact that we're not talking about more is kind of crazy to me, because like it's important factors. And she just gives these, vague answers. And, the same thing, too, talking about vague answers, the Xcel Energy renovations, the Grand Casino Arena. I don't think we should be spending $200 million of city money on that. That's ridiculous. That's $600 per person, roughly. And that's just, like, not a good use of funds when we're also complaining about the fact that we don't have enough funding for things.
So I think Melvin Carter would say we're trying to keep downtown alive. That's a big generator of people and money and tax revenue potentially for downtown. And like that's why he's asking money from the legislature to subsidize it.
Some money from the legislature, but a big chunk from the city itself as well, and some from the wild. But based on their own estimates that I read was that they would increase the amount of spending in downtown by $100 million a year. That was their estimate. So based on a 10% sales tax revenue, it would take 20 years to pay off that initial investment, which by then they're just going to be wanting to tear down the building and build a new one anyway. That's what they did back with the Civic Center. Do you know much about the old Civic Center?
I don't know.
It's what was there before, I think it was called the Civic Center. It was there before the Xcel Energy Center. And it was there for like 20 years and it was doing great. And it was unique because it at the bottom of the rink, it didn't have like white. It just had clear acrylic. So you could see like right down to the ice. But then they wanted more advertising space. So then they filled those with advertising space, which then ruined the view. And then everything I've read about this basically said that's why they tore it down and rebuilt a new one. I'm like, because you intentionally ruined the view? Like, that's just so... It's like this cycle of like, it's old, we need to throw it away and get a new one. It's like, we need to like... I get that we need to maintain our own infrastructure, but... And it is a city-owned property, but the city doesn't get a whole lot of benefit from that. I mean, we get some revenue from that and rent from the Wild, but the Wild get to control like the entire booking process and everything. I think the city gets 6 days a year. I asked for the contract. I had to do a data request to get the contract, and it's just we don't get enough benefit out of that. And so $600 per person in the city of St. Paul is just unreasonable to ask.
I'm going to present you with something your opponent has said about you. Kaliher has said you look like Jake Gyllenhaal. How do you respond?
I don't know.
Do you?
I like the meme you made. That was fun.
I don't really think you look like Jake Gyllenhaal.
I don't either.
Does he have the same eye color or something? What's going on with that comparison?
I have no idea. She said that beforehand, and then she said it as her intro, and I'm like,
right. She met you weird. And is like, oh, I got a great one-liner. I'm gonna say what my opponent looks like.
I don't know. My theory is it was like some political tactic to get people to like make fun of me or something. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think it was a little bit of a gaffe, and she kind of likes you a little bit. I think who doesn't like Jake Gyllenhaal? And if you're comparing someone to someone else that you like, I think she kind of likes you. She has a little bit of a crush. I think it was a nice thing, but it kind of made her look a little silly when she said it.
Well, whatever.
Can you differentiate yourself? We talked a little bit about the arena and the subsidy for the arena, but like the constant question, property taxes and revenue. Do you have any big ideas on that?
A big one on revenue with property tax is tax increment financing districts. We use those a lot in St. Paul, and they're, often touted as a way to get more housing, and it does incentivize more housing, which is a good thing. But on the downside is, when you get more people in the city and then all of the property tax revenue goes back to the developers rather than to the city, you still have to provide services to all those people who are now living here, but you're not getting the benefit of having more people by, getting all the housing that you need. And so right now I think it's 8% of our property taxes go to tax increment financing districts. So like that's a huge part. A lot of people talk about the nonprofits and state buildings and churches and stuff that we have. that account to a lot of property value that's not being taxed. But the tax increment financing districts need to be slowed down because that's taking a huge chunk out of there.
Why does your cat sound like a human child? What's going on?
I have two of them. They fight sometimes. So
Okay.
one was laying on me.
Microphone.
Yeah, sorry. one was sitting on me. The other one wanted to come up, and it was not okay.
Is the 8% number that you mentioned, is that like higher than most other cities? That's higher than typical in other cities, or do you know?
I don't know specifics. I've heard people say we have the most of any city in the state, but I haven't seen the specifics on that. It has gone down over the years, because that's the thing too, is as the time goes on, they kind of go away because the increment, it's over a period of time. So it was like almost 10% a few years ago, and so it's slowly going down. So that's why we just need to reduce the amount that we implement it for going forward, so that way you can keep that going down. And just getting housing built in other ways. I mean, you could have public housing get built, and it doesn't necessarily have to be subsidized public housing. You can also build just market rate public housing, housing that still generates revenue for the city, but then you can use that revenue to build more housing that is subsidized. You can kind of offset it a little bit instead of just always giving all the money to the developers.
There are construction workers looking at me from outside my window, so that's an exciting development. They're working on my window and looking at me as I podcast. This is very awkward for me. Do you have a second choice? Are you running by telling people, like, here's who I'm supporting after me? Rank me first, of course, but also rank this person and rank this person after me. Do you have that list?
Rank me first, and I'll tell you this. Yan Chen's guy reached out to me and told me that if I told people to rank Yan Chen second, they'd give me a spot in their administration.
Ooh.
Which
you
is
could be public works director.
Which
is that legal? That's not legal.
I hate that. But that's just, they're like, it's just politics, and I'm like, that's corruption in my mind. I don't know.
Sounds a little corrupt. It's good that you're revealing that piece of news on the Wedge Life podcast.
I got to give you the deets, But yeah, I mean, I don't think. I'd say Carter second. As far as me, I'd vote for Carter second. I mean, he has done some work with the bikes and stuff and other things, and also the non-fatal shooting thing. I'm glad he's done that finally, because I was on a jury trial 2 years ago for a murder, and that murder was kind of like a revenge for the guy's son getting shot, because his son got shot. It was a non-fatal shooting. The police weren't doing anything about it, and so he took matters into his own hands and murdered someone. And that was 2 years ago. I was on that jury trial, and the actual murder happened a year before that. And like, that should have been, within an hour in the courtroom of listening to that investigator tell me that he didn't talk to anyone else who was involved in that shooting, because he wanted to get the victim's statement first, the victim who was in the ICU. And I'm like, this is just incompetence at such a high level. And that's the first time I ever thought about running for mayor, was because I'm like, if they're not even investigating non-fatal shootings, like what is going on here? There's got to be more issues, and I'm glad that's why I'm glad they're finally doing it. But everyone's giving Carter a whole bunch of joy for that, but like, he should have known that was something to be done like years prior. So
from the perspective of Minneapolis, it sounds like things are all on the violent crime front. Like, it sounds like your mayor has it handled. Murder rates low, solving a lot of non-fatal shootings. We had a presentation at the Minneapolis City Council talking about how we don't solve those. We devote all our resources to murders, and then these non-fatal shootings, which are attempted murders. If you you wanted it to be a murder, it just didn't work out, and it could easily lead, as you were referencing, whether it's revenge or someone coming back to finish the job, someone who is not caught for a non-fatal shooting.
Exactly.
That's the kind of person who's looking to do a murder in the future. So if you don't catch the person, it's a big problem. But sounds like Mayor Carter's got it handled.
He seemed to have finally figured it out years later. But it's just, these are the kinds of things that, like, you need to be paying attention to all of those little details. And that's I'm a detail oriented person, and like, I dig into the details and I ask questions. I never stop asking questions. I'm deeply curious about how everything works, and It's, with things like the police, it's like you don't get to know those specific details, which is why it was so revealing to me that like when you finally do get to see the inside and how things are working, and you see issues, and then those issues aren't even solved for years later, it's like these are the kinds of things that need to be done decisively and quickly and be paid attention to. And so that's kind of where I differentiate. It's like I want to get in there and like find every little thing. And I know that, everyone wants to solve all the problems, but like I actually do like dive deep into these things and care deeply about finding that information and making the right decisions.
Do you have positions on things like renters' rights, rent control? Do you have like a response to the rent control question? Is it in a good place right now? Was it a bad decision initially?
Rent control is a tough problem, and it's up to city council to kind of figure that stuff out for the most part. But I did talk a while back against the exceptions, because everything that I've read about rent control across the country has shown that those exceptions are often the cause for the negative effects. Because whenever people talk about how rent control has never worked anywhere in the country, every single place in the country that's been tried had those exceptions. And so what ends up happening is you end up with housing that is rent controlled that then gets disinvested in, and you have another set of property that is, exempt, and then those rents go up faster than they would have without the rent control. And so you have this kind of weird dichotomy of like issues, but at the same time, the rent controlled properties, those people, their rents stay, controlled. And so there's positives, there's negatives. And so it's a complicated issue. I really wanted to try the no exceptions thing, like all straight up and just wait for it to, kind of settle out and figure it out. But people got antsy and rental housing starts like went down. So there was response to that. So I get it. But, it's also hard because, if you're building a new property and you have rent control, you can set your rent to whatever you need to do to make money. It's not necessarily about making a profit on your building. It's more about the financing issues. The national companies or the national banks didn't want to invest in a place that had rent control. It's just a checkbox, and they say, well, we're just going to give money to someone else instead. So that's a real issue,
They want to see the rent growth and the income growth over time.
They want to keep making more money, and if you can make more money at the neighboring town than here, then
so is
that's
it a
where you put your
problem?
money.
Would it have been a problem if rent control had discouraged investment in new housing in St. Paul?
I think it would be, but at the same time, it's a problem just for rentals, and half of the properties in St. Paul already are rentals. So I think a separate but connected issue is we need to build more housing that people can actually afford to buy. It's like I would love to live in a smaller place. My place is 1,400 square feet. I'd rather live in a place sub 1,000. I don't need all this space necessarily, but there aren't really a whole lot of options. You on Zillow and you look at places under 1,000 square feet, and for rentals, there's 1,400 places to choose from. But for condos or places you can buy, there was less than 200. So it's like there's huge dichotomy of like where people are building, and they want to build rentals because they can make more money off of it than building a condo or a co-op or something. So I think it'd be great if the city kind of had a way of connecting people who want to live in those types of places to get together and build a co-op, and maybe help with the financing of that, because it's tough to get 40 people together to all build a building together. So it'd be nice if there was like a structure for people to get actually to collect and get that going. That'd be awesome, because then you can kind of fight that and let people afford those places, because all the most affordable places to live are getting bought up by landlords and then rented back out to the people who could afford those places.
Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you wish we had talked about that I didn't get to? Like what?
I just wanted to talk about everything. I'm always down to talk about all the different things. I guess we could talk about the CVS. That's another crazy one.
Do you have a unique perspective on the famous vacant CVS and the livability issues surrounding it?
I would like to clarify a statement I made on a previous forum that I said that the city council should eminent domain it and then demolish it. But I looked at the Ramsey County property tax and found out that property is valued at $3.5 million. So that's probably not the right choice. Sounds like they might be able to demolish it just from it being a vacant building and being a nuisance, and have power to do that through there. So that's great. That whole Alliance Field area, they just came out with a whole bunch of new plans for what they want to do around there. And while those are all great, it's all low. It's a lot of low height, low density kind of property built. Like there's like a restaurant or something, which is, it's better than nothing. But I wish there was a little more push there. But private businesses can do what they want, I guess, on their own private.
Do you have thoughts about the public safety situation on University Avenue in that area?
Yeah, I mean,
what do we do?
That's a tough one. You kind of got to make sure that people aren't being antisocial, and like have the police actually be around there and like, have a presence, and not as like a, an obstructive force of like conflict, but just being there to like help and like give a sense that it's safe. If I'm walking by there and there's not a police officer, it's like you might have a tension there. And like if there is police around and like people are actually patrolling the area and just make it feel more safe. And that's all that you really need to do. And like also help those people with services that are, and guide those services to those people. So.
Well, Adam Dullinger for Mayor of St. Paul, thank you for joining me. And thank you for bringing your cats.
Yeah, they ran away now, but they're great.
And thank you for not spending a moment cleaning up the bedroom before.
You're welcome. You got to see how it is. I got this is like an oversized sweater. I've got my clothes. I have my backpack. I have another backpack. I have my rain gear for my bike. Got the cat scratcher. It's
yeah, you were cloaked in a blanket the whole time, and I feel like you were the stereotypical person who should be working downtown but is apparently working from home cloaked.
I don't work from home. I
really?
Came home early for this. Yeah, no, this would definitely be a little more cleaned up if I was working from here, but but yeah, I work. I do not work remote, but my house right now, I have this because my house is a little cold. I've been pushing off turning on the heat. I have solar panels, so my energy bill is usually pretty low, so I had a $22 bill last month, and I'm really hoping to keep it low this month, so we're trying to hold it out as long as we can. It's 62 degrees in here right now.
62 degrees in your nasty cat blanket, as Mayor Fry would say.
Come on.
Okay. Thank you, Adam Dullinger. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.